Welcome back to Bookshelves. My name's Shelby, and this is a cozy little corner on the internet where we talk about all things reading, writing, and as of recently, studying. I'm here with my new best furry friend, and we are staying at my in-laws this week down in North Carolina, where it is beautiful and sunny, and we're getting a little early summer here, and we're dog sitting for them while they're out of town. So I have on my hands a bit of a proper vacation, and I'm hoping to treat this time as a excuse me. I'm hoping to treat this time as a bit of a writing retreat. So my hope is that I can finish the first draft of Project Laurels before August. So I'm sure I will have plenty more to tell you about my writing and, of course, all of the luxuriating that is happening this week a little bit later on. And I just wanted to kind of go ahead and kick off the vlog here on a sunny and beautiful Saturday with my very furry friend. Yeah. Good morning and happy Sunday. I'm coming to you from a 30-degree different day. It was like 90 degrees and sunny yesterday. We had a lovely sort of poolside afternoon and really just tried to enjoy the weather. But today it is in the 50s and low 60s. It may or may not rain. And we have tickets to a ball game in Greenville, which is about an hour from the house. So this morning we just had a lovely, slow, cozy morning. I whipped up some avocado toast. And I'm hoping to get in a nice writing session before we hit the road. And, we'll spend a little bit of time in Greenville and come home before it gets dark, hopefully. I have my furry friend down here with me, just out of frame. And so she might join me for my writing session this morning. But I thought I would tell you guys a little bit about where I'm at in the story, because it's been quite a long time since I have filmed a writing vlog. I am working on a Greek mythology retelling, a novel that goes by the sort of code name of Project Laurels here on the channel. And I just yes, sorry, she needs to hold my hand or my foot. What is it? What do you want? I have not made a lot of progress since I was last vlogging during NaNoWriMo, but 2 weekends ago maybe, I decided to kind of sit down and pick up the pen again, so to speak. I finished part 1. It's a 4-part novel. 4.5 parts really. But I finished part 1 in January during a sort of one-off writing session, and so I printed it out and I made a copy for myself and a copy for my husband because he has been a real sounding board in this process. He has long time served as an editor of stuff that I want to say and want to write. I really trust his instincts, his input. I think he understands really clearly what I want to do with the story, and because I've never worked on a fiction piece this long before, I'm really concerned about making sure that it achieves the tone that I want, and I think he knows what I want. So I asked him to be kind of my first reader, and he's going to be reviewing part 1 while I'm writing part 2, and then hopefully I can incorporate all of his edits a little bit later. So we went out to a coffee shop and I started writing in part 2 and he started reading, and I got some very early thoughts from him that were very kind and generous and really exciting, because it sounds like the tone question that I had concerns about, at least in the first couple chapters, are hitting the mark for him, which is great. because I'm really buzzing about it. So I finished the first chapter of part 1 in that coffee shop date a couple weeks ago, and I now need to jump into the second chapter. And generally speaking, the parts of this book are each broken up into about 9 chapters, and I kind of conceive of them as being like 3 small arcs. This is sort of like a life story saga, and so there is like quite a bit of time jumping throughout the story. So I'm currently in a sort of 3-chapter arc that is sort of the core of the myth. This is like the fundamental turning point for this character and kind of what makes them an icon throughout the rest of the book. It shapes how they move through the world for the rest of the book. It feels super high stakes, and it's a really like upsetting thing that is happening. And it's something that I really want to make sure I execute with care and compassion, but also that incorporates all of the necessary little nuggets and previews so that everything that unfurls afterwards really feels earned, feels like explicable, and can always be tied back to this moment. So it feels kind of like high stakes writing, but it's writing I'm really excited about because it's such a core part of the story. It's a core part of the myth. And obviously these were like some of the first scenes that I imagined when I decided I wanted to write this story. So I am buzzing, but it is kind of dark content. And I'm trying to kind of find that balance of getting in that headspace, but also being able to like step away from it and take breathers between writing sessions as needed. So that's what I'm going to be working on today. Chapter 2 of part 2, which I think is like chapter 11, maybe. And I'll let you know when I've got some progress in either the end of today or possibly in a few days later this week once I've maybe wrapped a chapter or something like that. So let's dive into it. Hello from Tuesday. I had the most wonderful morning sitting right out here on the porch in the slightly chiller sunshine. It is like quite cold here in the morning, but by 11 it is roasty toasty, and by the afternoon it is perfect heat to be like out by the pool all day. So trying to get some writing in the mornings. I did just a little bit of writing on Sunday before the ball game. I ended up doing more just like planning and outlining for the chapter. This chapter is sort of an unwritten part of the myth, but that is sort of fundamentally tied to the myth. It feels really high stakes to get it right so that everything after really feels earned. And so I spent some time outlining. I wrote like a couple hundred words maybe, and then we enjoyed a little afternoon out in Greenville. So Sunday and then Monday were pretty chilly days during the morning and early afternoon, and then warmed up later on. Monday I decided not to write at all. Instead we had like a nice slow morning and watched
the Voyage of the Dawn Treader Narnia movie. We've been reading the books and just finished that book. So since it was a little cold to be outside, we enjoyed a movie instead. And I read a great deal out in the sun by the pool. In the afternoon, I finished Project Hail Mary. So that was yesterday. Today was a huge drafting day. So this morning I probably wrote for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours out here on the porch, and I finished the whole chapter. It's a relatively short chapter, but it's a really intense, like, high impact chapter, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, especially given that at the start of this process I was feeling very uncertain about what I would include. So I'm feeling really good about that. It was just over 1,000 words, and I'm gonna go ahead and have an afternoon of rest. I'm going to start a new book since I've finished Project Hail Mary, and I think that's going to be Robert Jackson Bennett's new, like, murder mystery series in a fantasy setting called the Din and Anya books, maybe? Well, those are the main characters and the detectives of the story anyway. So that's what's coming up for me, and then my hope is that the rest of the week can have a kind of similar structure as today, because today worked out really well. So wake up, have a nice slow morning, a nice easy breakfast, and then right up until lunch. That's the hope. So I will check in with you later when I have more to share. Hello from Thursday afternoon. I just wrapped my writing session for the morning, and I left off in a place where I could have kept going. So I think there's a world where I could end up writing a little bit more this evening. I really feel like I left a lot of sort of unfinished stuff off the page, how to complete that thought. Anyway, so yesterday, Wednesday, I spent the morning, instead of writing prose, really just kind of outlining, because I'd reached a new chapter, and this chapter is sort of all of the reaction and fallout to what happened in the previous 2 chapters. And again, these are sort of quite iconic moments. They're going to set the tone for the rest of the book, and I needed to sort of map out for myself the logic of each of the people who are going to kind of react to the story of what happened. The idea of this chapter is that there is sort of a series of disclosures about an incident, and that each person receives that disclosure and fails to believe it. And so I kind of needed to hammer out the logic and reasoning and like sort of approach that each of those people would take in hearing this story and kind of finding it just impossible, and how they would be kind of approaching a conversation about it with that person. And I had the basic beats of that mapped out in my head, but I was kind of struggling with the leaps and the connection points to make. So I did some outlining, and then I talked with Jake. He's separately to us being here to dog sit, painting the pool house. That's kind of his big task for the week. So he was painting the pool house, and I was writing under the patio and pitching ideas to him and kind of workshopping some of the places where I was struggling. And there was one perspective in particular that I was having a hard time with that I think we really worked out well, which I was really grateful for. So all of that outlining happened yesterday. I kind of got oriented with the arguments and the thinking, and started to imagine the actual scenes where these conversations would happen, because ideally you don't want somebody just talking to 3 different people in one room and not doing anything or not changing the setting. So today I was really set up to just like dive right in and write, and that has felt so good. I feel like I have a really clear path for what's next. So the first writing chunk that I did today was just over 1,000 words. I think it was like 1,130 something. And like I said, I really think I could keep going. So I may or may not pick that back up later today. But for now, it's lunchtime, and then I'll probably spend another afternoon out in the sun, getting some reading in and maybe swimming in that lovely pool. So if nothing else, tomorrow morning, Friday, I will certainly be sitting back down to write. We're here through the end of the day Sunday, and then headed out just to get a couple hours in on the road. So we've still got a few days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before we leave. And I've just had such a lovely time. It is very much a full vacation for me. I'm really trying to take time to rest and to enjoy the weather and to read and kind of refill the creative well. Writing is a part of that, but it is not my sole focus. Like, I couldn't comfortably sit in the sun and write on my laptop all day, and it's very important to me that I sit in the sun. So, this is perhaps not the most intensely focused writing retreat, but I really wanted to kind of bring that energy and sort of that conceiving of this vacation as an opportunity to really do a lot of writing into the week. And thus far, it served me really well. I finished a mostly drafted chapter. I wrote a whole new chapter, and I expect that I will finish this chapter by the end of the week as well. And, my parts, the 4-part book, have about 3 subsections in them. Each is about 3 chapters. So this would be really significant progress if I, knocked out 3 chapters in the course of being here. So I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really energized and motivated, and just so freaking glad to be back in this story. Like I said at the start of this vlog, I hadn't drafted in so long, and I've just been like so full of ideas since kind of tuning back into the book. So I'm having a really lovely time. Hello from Saturday. It is our last sort of full day in vacation mode here. My in-laws get back late this evening, and we're gonna spend all of Sunday together. We're gonna whip up a nice little brunch for them and just kind of catch up about their trip, and then start the journey home with room to spend a couple hours taking in some of the sights in the Great Smoky Mountains on Monday morning before really leaving properly. But I just thought I'd give you a quick update because Friday was a little unexpected. I was planning to do quite a bit more writing because, like I said, I left off at such a place where I had so much more to say. I felt like there was more gas in the tank, if you will. But I had a little appointment, like a telehealth appointment Friday morning, and Then ended up giving my mom a call to just kind of give her an update about all of that. So that gobbled up a bit of time. And then I was also kind of talking more through some ideas with Jake. And all of that meant that I only got like maybe 100 words of writing in. Like it was just sort of interrupted by thoughts and different conversations throughout the morning. But that's all right. I still have that energy like lying in wait ready to go when I have the time to prioritize it. But since today was our last sort of relaxation on our own day and we need to run some errands this evening to prep for that brunch, we decided that, have a low-key morning and just spend the late morning and early afternoon outside by the pool one last time. So no writing for me today. Hopefully I'll get some writing done in the car. I don't mind writing on my phone, and it's a long drive. I think it's like 12, 13 hours home. So more updates to come there, but just thought I'd chime in to say no writing on Saturday, very little on Friday, but I am feeling really rested, rejuvenated, excited about the story. I keep having thoughts about it randomly throughout the day, and I just haven't been plugged into it enough recently for that to have been the case. So I'm feeling really good about that sort of renewed degree of connection, and hopefully that can kind of carry back into our time at home. Anyway, I'll check in with you probably Sunday or Monday at some point. Hello, it has been like 2 weeks since we got home, and I just totally forgot to wrap up this vlog.
So that's what I'm here to do. I did not end up writing at all on the drive home. I need to stop assuming that I will do that and either like commit to doing it at the top of the ride or just leave it open-ended. You know what I mean? Because I feel disappointed that I didn't write on the drive, but I hadn't really committed in either direction, and it's okay. Right? I was enjoying other things on that road trip instead. So I wanted to kind of wrap up the amount that I wrote on this little like vacation writing retreat, and then just share a couple other thoughts that haven't come up yet in the vlog, but that have really been on my mind kind of about this time. So I did take a look, and I ended up writing just over 3,000 words in our week away, which is great. I mean, it's definitely more than I write in a normal week. I mean, if you look at the last several months, it's more than I've written in the last several months because I'm just getting back into the swing of things. But I was in many ways imagining making more progress than I did, and I think that really gets at like one of the big reflections I have from this time, which is that I need to kind of recognize that a writing retreat is actually quite a bit different than just like a vacation. And I think I have conceived of those as being really similar and kind of conflated them. But there was still so much stuff that I was doing, both that were obligations and that were fun time during this trip that weren't about writing. And that gets in the way of sort of like maxing out the amount of writing I can do in a day. And ultimately that's because this was a vacation for me, right? Like I really wanted to be out in the sun. I wanted to be reading books and like resting. And I got all of that. It was so beautiful. It was so needed. And I really am grateful for it. But beyond that, I also needed to like cook 3 meals a day and make sure that, you know, we were taking care of the home that we were in, that we were tidying up after ourselves, and that we were taking care of that precious dog, right? And those are also obligations that take up time. And something that I've been reflecting on is just that like a writing retreat is something that is really built around maximizing writing time. You know, I've seen other people get to go on writing retreats, and oftentimes you're eating convenience food or you're going out to eat, so cooking isn't built into that, right? You're in a different space, a space that you can like maintain respect for, but don't need to like do a lot of extra work to maintain like you would in your own home or in the home of somebody else. And, you know, the whole sort of system is designed around writing. And that's just not what this was. That's totally fine. I think I just need to notice that and like manage my expectations around, is what I'm doing a writing retreat or is what I'm doing enjoying a vacation and trying to prioritize writing in that time. You know what I mean? It's just good for, you know, making sure that I feel like this is such a success. It's such a win. I'm getting progress instead of feeling like, oh, I wrote, but I didn't write as much as I wanted, right? Like one of those feels like momentum and the other feels like punishment, you know? So anyways, I'm going to do a better job of distinguishing for myself what is a writing retreat and what is a vacation in the future. And I'm going to celebrate this as a huge win. I feel so good about the writing that I got to do and just being back in that like writing headspace, thinking about the book all the time. That's like so wonderful, that feeling when it's all consuming. The last thing I wanted to share, and that like really lent itself to like perpetuating that kind of constant thinking about the book, even though I wasn't writing all the time, is that Jake was reading a bunch more of the book during this trip. So I think I mentioned that he'd read the first couple chapters on a cafe visit last month, and that was so exciting and terrifying, but he had really positive feedback. And this trip, he read, I don't know how, maybe 4 or 5 chapters even. He made significant progress through the part of the draft that he has, and that was just so special. We were super aligned, which was a huge relief on, you know, what's working, what's kind of missing from the story, where we might cut. We were very aligned on like what's doing work for the story and what's fluff, which feels great. And we've been able to talk a lot about maintaining this like ominous tone, which is what I want the book to have and how I want it to feel and to build over time. So it's been such a relief
to be on the same page about that. And it's just been so exciting and generative to have him reading the book and then getting to talk about each chapter when he finishes, because we've had such productive conversations. I've reimagined whole scenes. I feel like I've had a better sense of identifying like where passive memory could be active relationship building. And, you know, he's had a really strong focus on like who he wants to hear more from, which is really helpful for me because this is a book with a huge cast of characters. And I've had to sort of prioritize who are going to be the most significant people in that big cast of characters. So just having his thoughts as a reader on who he's like craving to hear more from helps me know kind of where, if there are characters I do in fact want to center in the story, where I can kind of like bump up those interactions and let other characters kind of fade a little bit more into the background. So that's been huge, and we just have had like the most wonderful conversations about it. So I've really been buzzing about that, and it has given me a ton of motivation to keep writing, knowing that there's like somebody waiting for the story, you know. Like even if nothing else comes of it, even if this really is a project that is just for me, it can also be something that is for him, and that's nice and like a sort of value in and of itself for this project, even if it otherwise didn't go anywhere. So I had a really, really lovely time away. I was very grateful for that glimpse of spring and summer sunshine and for that time of rest. And I'm gonna do my darndest to get back into the swing of writing consistently. I do have this goal of finishing the first draft by the fall. I don't know that that's super realistic, but I do have like summer Fridays where I get every other Friday off of work. And so my hope is that if I can really start to like honor having a long block of time every Saturday to write, and then maybe committing those Fridays to writing, that I could make really solid progress. So we'll see what's to come, but I have loved getting back into the flow of writing. And I'd love to know where you're at with your projects. Have you been writing recently? Have you been on a writing retreat? And what are your thoughts on like creating the optimal environment for writing versus creating the optimal environment for rest? I'd love to know all of your thoughts, and I will check in with you soon about all things reading and writing in another video. Until then, bye.